There's so much to be done here first.
Black Bolt? Really?
So here's the story of a royal family that had it all, and the one brother who tried to take it all away from them, Inhumans.
Hello and welcome to another episode of The Damn Right Show. I'm Adam, and today we're looking at the much maligned big and small screen adaptations of Marvel's Inhumans. Be sure to share and subscribe for more content. The goal is to have 10 subscribers by the end of the year. What can I say? I'm ambitious. The Inhumans was released in late 2017 in ABC, with the first 2 episodes having a short theatrical run in Imax cinemas due to the involvement of Imax themselves. Marvel movies and TV were well established by then, so how could it all go wrong? Well, because the show was a real piece of shit and absolutely nothing redeemable about it, and I'm sorry to say that. Inhumans was basically proto-mutants that were experimented on before recorded history and decided to take their ball and go home, that home being the city of Attilan, somewhere on the surface of the moon. The city is ran by the Inhuman royal family, headed by their king Black Bolt, an Inhuman that gets his powers from his voice, where if he were to speak he has the power to level an entire city, if not destroy the world. Tough stuff to get this kind of character across when he's unable to speak, but it could be done. I've seen Children of a Lesser God. Next up is his Queen Medusa, not to be confused, or maybe to be confused by the Gorgon Queen of ancient Greek mythology as seen in Clash of the Titans and Clash of the Titans. Plus there's the idea that there's another member of the royal family called Gorgon, so I don't really know what is going on there. Her power is derived from her hair, not of snakes, but just independently controlled hair. The last main Inhuman of note is Maximus, or Maximus the Mad, whose powers did not manifest, so his jealousy prompts him to lead rebellions against his family, whilst at the same time having a real distaste for mankind, even though he's practically one of us. Lest we forget, the what should have been face of the franchise, a ruddy big teleporting dog called Lockjaw. The Inhumans were first introduced in the comics way back in 1965 in issue 45 of the Fantastic Four, and were created by Stan Lee and artist Jack Kirby. In October 2014, Marvel had announced their Phase 3 movie lineup, including an Inhumans movie set for 2018, which would have slotted it after Avengers Infinity War and Captain Marvel, but before Avengers Endgame, nay, Infinity War Part 2. So back then, they could have been penciled in Endgame itself. Marvel President Kevin Feige was quoted by saying, "We really do believe that the Inhumans can be a franchise or series of franchises unto themselves. They have dozens of powers and amazing social structure. With our 20th movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, we wanted to continue to refine what that universe is about." Inhumans weren't particularly famous outside of the comic book bubble, but with the success of the other relatively unknown property, Guardians of the Galaxy, we all trusted Feige's ambition. This was quite a logical idea at the time, considering it was before talks of the merger between Fox and Disney, which meant that the X-Men return to Marvel was less than a glint in the House of Mouse's eyes. So, they could use the Inhumans as a backup version of the X-Men, and this was even reflected in the comics, with the Inhumanity storyline, where they basically washed away the idea of mutants to give front and centre the idea of space mutants, the Inhumans, and they would take up Marvel's main team mantle, outside of the Avengers obviously. By 2016, Agent Carter had been cancelled and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. spin-off's Most Wanted was not going ahead. Feige suggested Inhumans could either be pushed into Phase 4 or go to television, and television it did. Shortly after, Inhumans was set to have an 8-episode first season with Scott Buck from the not-so-great Iron Fist and the not-so-great later seasons of Dexter as the showrunner. Inhumans and the idea of the Terrigen Mist that brings out the latent powers of an Inhuman or kills the horse dead if they didn't have any, was already introduced in Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., where the character Daisy had her powers unlocked and she became the Inhuman Quake. The series revolved around her mother being evil and her dad being Mr. Hyde, and that Hydra was actually a cult that worshipped the banished Inhuman Hive, who would yada yada yada. Imax jumped on board after a success of playing episodes of Game of Thrones on the big screen and opted to entirely pay for the first 2 episodes of the 8-episode series, which, as I mentioned, they would be playing on those big old Imax screens. In fact, we as an audience were promised a Game of Thrones level quality programme, further assured by the casting of Iwan Rheon, who had completed a successful run as the super bad Ramsay Bolton in Game of Thrones. The cast was filled out with Anson Mount as Black Bolt, mostly known at that point from the show Hell on Wheels and Britney Spears' Crossroads, but has more recently redeemed himself with his excellent portrayal of Captain Pike in Star Trek Discovery. Surinder Swan, who people jumped onto the comic connection of her playing as the magician Zatanna in Smallville, and Ken Loom was cast as the other Inhuman royal family member Karnak, and he's been in everything, but mostly remembered for his roles in Lost, Saw, and Rush Hour 1. Beyond that, no other particularly recognisable names or faces, which was a little bit of a cause for concern considering the budget involved and the idea that Guardians of the Galaxy had pushed for up-and-comers that we at least recognised instead of the who's and whats of the Inhumans. I guess the expectations ran a little too high early. Audience expected a higher quality than, say, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s, but instead got something, well, significantly worse. I really planned to see the first 2 episodes in IMAX, but I couldn't be bothered to drive all the way to the Metro Centre, so I watched them at home, and oh boy, was that money well saved. When portraying a royal family member of any culture, there has to be an air of dignity and properness when it comes to pulling it off in a comic, movie, show, thing. It comes across as wooden. Every actor came across as either hammy or boring. No one had any personality and they weren't likeable. We wished them well, in that sense that we didn't wish them any specific harm. The setting of Atalan was once again on the moon, but was so plain that you could be forgiven for thinking that they'd accidentally released a version of the show before the special effects were added. It would appear that Inhumans aren't particularly good artists or have deep depth of imagination, or that they could have just been people behind the scenes without the imagination. Special effects though, right? Since the budget wasn't going on casting A-listers, and it didn't go on the design of the show, and it certainly didn't go on the costumes, which were either pastel or pleather, it must have gone to the special effects, right? No, it didn't, son. The special effects were terrible. 2 things that should have been focused on mostly were Lockjaw and Medusa's hair. Lockjaw was passable, but there was no point that you were going to mistake him for a real being by any means, the same way that you could accidentally fall into the idea of Rocket Raccoon being an actual actor, and Medusa's hair looked like shit. Medusa has been more popular in the comics in recent years, including runs with the Avengers. Her powers, as I said, come from her hair. So what do the people behind the scenes do? Well, they cut her fucking hair off, didn't they? Didn't show that in the trailers, did they? Because the trailer was getting bad enough clicks as it was. The story was basically about Maximus revolting and banishing the Inhumans to Earth, specifically Hawaii, because I think someone behind the scenes that's where the budget went. So the creators wanted to have a nice holiday and just throw something together with whoever was around. I get it. Anyway, the Inhumans get split up and have to find a way to engage with human society. Could be funny, fish out of water, Star Trek kind of thing. Coneheads as well, something along that line, but unfortunately there isn't a funny bone on set, nor should you expect yours to be tickled. Yes, the Inhuman family were all separate and don't have anyone really interesting to fight, so they basically just wander around aimlessly for 8 episodes. The 2 most ambitious characters, Triton and Lockjaw, get immobilized early to save on the budget, I guess, because Hawaii is notoriously expensive. Inhumans is one of the worst shows I've ever seen, not just from the standpoint of potential, because X-Men and Guardians of the Galaxy templates show that it can be done, there's no real reason to fail. But because the idea was so boring, having cardboard characters go to an unfamiliar land, having powers that they can't use, and have them separate so we cannot get a good gauge on who they are and why they are. After its cancellation, Marvel quietly brushed Inhumans under the rug, though it is available on Disney+, which is surprising. Inhumans is basically a show for completionists. Only watch if you really want to see absolutely everything the MCU has to offer, but seeing as though Disney have distanced themselves from anything TV related prior to Disney+, it would probably serve them well to incorporate a new version of the Inhumans in their TV and movie schedule, else people might accidentally want to watch this and sour their idea on comic book movies and TV shows altogether. Something's gonna have to pop that bubble at some point, and it almost was this. So, there it was, the Inhumans in all of its inglory. If you saw the Inhumans, comment below on your thoughts. If you haven't, comment anywhere. It's free. See you in the next video.